Good evening, folks. Ken Hovind here and the crew at Dinosaur Adventureland. Had an exciting day today. Got lots done around here. Praise God. It is November the 8th, 2018. And we've got to come volunteer. Brother, how long you been here? Come on up. Tell them who you are and what you've been here for, what, 3 or 4 days now?
5 days now.
5 days now, okay. Tell them who you are and what you do and all that stuff.
I'm Richard Watson IV. I'm here from Bangor, Maine. I grew up in a little Greenfield Baptist church, and about my early teen years, the world convinced me that I wanted something else, and I tried to take the control back, and everything I touched seemed to fall apart. Had to lose everything that was dear to me and hit rock bottom, and I came back. I was born again in jail, actually, and the Lord brought me back into the fold, and I even lost custody of my son, which I truly regret. But it was a blessing because the Lord brought me back, and now I've run into Kent Hovind's videos, and I can't seem to get enough of the Lord's. He's been blessing me, so I've found all kinds of different literature, everything that he's suggested. I've been reading books and growing in the Lord and growing in the faith, and I couldn't be happier. And it's been a pleasure to be around here and serve the Lord with my hands, because I serve a secular establishment back home, and it's really, it can be spiritually draining sometimes. So it's been really refreshing, and I can feel the spirit here. It's amazing. So come on down. It's really a lot of fun, and it really will be a blessing to you.
Amen. You've been here 5 days now?
5 days, yep.
So some people say we're a cult.
We serve the Lord. Praise Jesus.
Independent Baptist, if that's a cult.
Amen.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming. All right, get back to work. Okay. Thank you. He's been out there building on the new shop/extension to the Science Center, and quite a challenge, some of that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Can be.
The pole barn, yeah. Come down, volunteer, spend a week. You'll love it here. Almost everybody does. We had a few that left and got the sour grapes attitude, and saying all kinds of nasty things, but the vast majority come here and just say, wow, this is awesome. Just awesome. Okay, we need another carpenter. How many more, Jeff? 3 or 4? Yeah, to finish up. That's just to finish the pole barn. There's more projects waiting, right?
I suspected that.
Okay, good. My brain won't shut off. I eat pizza with peanut butter on it late at night and wake up and say, whoa, hey, we could do this.
Well, you don't even need that.
Don't even need that. Bible study Sunday through Friday, 6:30 from now on, I guess, unless somebody wants to. It doesn't matter to me. Y'all come, take the tour. We need a trencher of some sorts for projects. We're always doing projects around here. Need some concrete dinosaurs. If you have some artistic skill and want to bend the wire around and stucco them, come on down, build some dinosaurs for us. If you want to get involved in the presidential pardon, KentHovinIsInnocent.com. Call Brady Byram. There he is right there. Phone number in Dallas, Texas. Talk to him today. And he's helping people do that. I got a wild idea. Too much pizza with peanut butter on it, Rich, that rope you got is 200 feet long, right? That, 3-inch nylon rope? Huge, barge rope. I want to build a Burmese bridge across the lake.
Whoa. Thanks, Rich. That's cool.
Well, yeah, everybody needs a Burmese bridge, and so I thought we'd put it right here where the neck of the dinosaur is, right there, and be able to go across. We still got to get under it with the boat, so it's got to be kind of high. That's where the dam was that we broke, remember, and made the miniature Grand Canyon in minutes. Just go back to Christmas time, the day before Christmas, 2016, here on our YouTube, and you can see the dam break, how rapidly water can do damage and erosion. Grand Canyon probably formed in less than a week. Not millions of years. So come on down. If you want to help us build a Burmese bridge, got all kinds of wild ideas. No money, but boy, do we get the ideas. Just don't quit. This is definitely a good place to heal up psychologically, emotionally. Just come, relax. This is not a cult. I'm an independent Baptist preacher, have been for 45 years. Believe the Bible is true, and we want to help. Just a place to heal up. We need a lot of plumbing, electric, sheetrock. How you doing on bunkhouse 5 and 6? Who's working on 5?
Plumbing's done.
Plumbing's done.
Working.
And working. Got the hot water in 6, hot water heater? Yay.
Hot water heater, yeah, it's working.
I haven't been in there yet. It's been busy. Anyway, praise God. Don't go in, okay. 2 more baptized this week, so 35 total so far. If you want to help us stay open for free, join our 777 Club. We're looking for 770 people to give $1 a day. You're welcome to give more, and if you do, but we're not going to put any pressure on you. We won't send you a letter begging for money. Just donate if God puts it on your heart. Make any checks to CSE. Okay, we've been put out a whole series of videos, and we're going to continue this maybe tomorrow. See how far I get tonight. On things that just cannot be explained by the evolution theory. It had to be designed, and we've been for the last 4 months been doing this. And so, self-proclaimed atheist Aaron Ra Nelson said he wanted to do a debate or something like this, and I said, well, give me your best 3 evidences on evolution. And with Mr. Nelson, since he continually interrupts, our last exchange, I got 36 minutes, he got 62 minutes, and he interrupted me 288 times in 36 minutes. So I'm not interested in a live debate with him unless we have a mute button that one of our people controls. Let me talk, get it finished. I'm a gentleman. I will be fair and kind, but sometimes to answer a 5-second question takes days. Sometimes in murder trials, somebody will, give a 5-second accusation. Did you murder this guy on, 22nd Street? And it takes months or a year. Look at O.J. Simpson's trial. So, for you morons that are trying to distract attention by saying, Hovind, why are you giving such a long answer to his 26-minute video? Well, his turn is next. He's welcome to take 3 years and pick my sentences apart, and then I'll go back through again. Or my suggestion would be, Mr. Nelson, you shut up right here, you lost, keep quiet, and go do something else, okay? But if you want to make comments, I will be glad to respond. That was the deal when we started. You make your speech, which is here. I interject my comments, which I'm doing. Then you go back and interject your comments, which you have yet to do, and I would suggest you just stop and not do it. But if you do, then I get to interject my comments for the final time. You get 2 cracks at it, I get 2 cracks at it. So I asked him for his 3 best evidences for evolution. He said the first line of evidence is the fact that evolution happens. Go back and watch the tape.
Not quite.
Biodiversity and complexity increase naturally. I don't believe that for 1 second, Mr. Nelson. The Bible says they will bring forth after their kind. Now, variations certainly happen, but they have limits, and this is what you refuse to admit. They've been breeding trying to get bigger pigs for a long time. Farmers keep trying to get bigger and bigger pigs. Do you think they'll ever get a pig as big as Texas, where you live?
No.
I would say probably no. There is a limit, okay? Now, you don't want to admit that, but yes, there is a limit. And roaches become resistant to pesticides. You spray them after a couple generations, the spray doesn't bother them. There are limits, though. They will never become resistant to a sledgehammer. I promise, okay? Here's a tiger had 3 different color cubs. They're still tiger. There are limits. They always produce the same kind, what anybody would consider the same kind. That's not really evolution. The information for that variety was already in the gene code. Notice they got tigers, they never got a blue one or a pink one or a red one. They got colors that are already in the gene code. The new information is no new information is added. The dogs did not become pink or learn to fly. They're still dog. Might be useless like your dog, or but it's still dog, sort of, okay? And the gene pool of the new variety is always more limited. This is from my seminar part 4. Chihuahuas cannot produce Great Danes. Their gene pool is limited. How long would the Chihuahuas last in the real world? Turn them loose into the woods and watch. Wolf would walk up there. Go ahead, make my day. Crunch, 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 right? I come from Illinois, corn country. There are hundreds of varieties of corn. They have to number them. But when you get a variety or a strain of corn, it's still corn, and it's always weaker in almost every other area except for the one trait they're looking for. Maybe it's more disease resistance, or maybe it's more drought resistant, whatever their area is. They raise corn to stand more water, or to withstand insect fly, whatever, or to grow bigger. But it's always corn. You're never going to get a whale or a hamster or a tomato to grow on your corn stalk. There are limits, and you guys either can't understand it or won't admit it. There are 339 recognized breeds of dogs in America, in the American Kennel Association. They're always going to produce a dog, and they all came from dogs. BBC, looks like 95% of current dogs came from just 3 original founding females. I think it was probably maybe 1. But still, they got the right concept. Sure, dogs produce a variety, but they're limited. Today's dogs come in all shapes and sizes. But scientists believe they evolved from just a handful of wolves tamed by humans 15,000 years ago. They're getting close. Keep studying. Pretty soon you can be independent, temperamental, fundamental, right-wing, radical, chicken-eating Baptist if you keep studying, okay? They talk about, this Irish textbook talks about divergent. I am wound up tonight, man. I got to get this covered. I've been studying this, and I said, makes me mad that he teaches what he does, so I'll be sweet and kind and go fast, okay? Divergent evolution, this Irish textbook says. Don't give it a fancy name. It's still a dog. Oh, yes, look, boys and girls, the poodle, the Dalmatian, the terrier all came from a common... It's still a dog. It's not divergent evolution. This textbook says we have divergent evolution because on opposite sides of the Grand Canyon, there are two different kinds of squirrels. Whoa. Okay. Let's see. We have the Kaibab squirrel on one side and the Abert squirrel on the other side. This proves we all came from a rock. In their mind, that's all you need. There's a whole bunch of varieties of squirrels, and you squirrel hunters, I'd like to get one of every single kind to put in our museum here, stuffed and mounted. That'd be cool. There's a variety of horses. And this Mexican textbook says the zebra and the horse had a common ancestor. I would agree that's probably true. And it looked like a horse, you know, four-wheel drive, leather upholstery. It was a horse kind of animal. There are miniature horses today, 30 inches tall. We had one of the world's smallest horses come visit Dinosaur Adventureland. My granddaughter, she's now 17 years old, is trying to sit on the horse. She's 4 weeks old there. That was a tiny horse. It's still a horse. It could be horses, zebras, asses, all had a common ancestor. They crossbreed them all sorts of ways. They get zorses, zonkies, zeonies, zedonks, zebras, shebras. Most of them are sterile, but the fact that they can cross at all probably indicates they're the same kind. I bet you could not cross a horse and a cow, or a horse and a giraffe, or a horse and a hamster.
They're not the same thing.
There are limits. Why can't they admit that? Stripeless zebra baffles the experts. A Zetland zoni, the result of breeding a female Shetland pony to a male zebra. They're still four-wheel drive, you know, leather upholstery. It's still in the horse kind. Is it a zonky or a debra? We don't know. We can't figure it out. Here's a herd of zebroids running around. Still the same kind of animal. You know, in the last 100 years, the Kentucky Derby up in Kentucky, the winning speed went from an average of 127 seconds down to 123 seconds. Now, even in the old days, they got some really good times. I mean, really good times in the old days, in the 20s and 30s. Question, how much money would you guess has been spent on selective breeding trying to get a faster horse for the Kentucky Derby?
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. Why don't they breed wings on the horse and fly around the track in 12 seconds? You're still getting a horse, guys. You're always going to get a horse. They got leopons now, cross between a lion and a leopard. It's still in the cat family. They got tigons and ligers. How many kinds of cows are there in the world? Gee whiz, there's some for more beef, some for more milk, some to withstand the heat better. There's a cross between a buffalo and a bison, or domestic beefalo cow. Well, maybe the buffalo and the cow are the same original created kind. Somebody crossed a sheep and a goat, got a geep. They crossed a false killer whale with a dolphin and got a whelpin. Okay, they still swim in the water. Try to cross your whelpin with a cow, okay, or an elephant. There's a cama, which is a result of a llama and a camel. Well, maybe that's original, same kind of animal, close enough to breed. There's a jaglion, cross between a jaguar and a lion. How about a bobcat lynx cross? I got a magazine where you can order chickens. You know, there are over 30 varieties of chickens you can get. And it says right here, jungle fowl are the original bird from which all varieties and strains of domesticated chickens are derived. Did you know all the chickens had a common ancestor? Anybody want to guess what it was?
Chicken?
A frog. A frog. Come on, man. There are 8 varieties of bears in the world. We got them display out here in our museum. 8 kinds of bears. Black bear, brown bear, grizzly bear, panda bear, you know, sun bear, polar bear. They might have had a common ancestor called a bear. There's a crossbred of polar and a grizzly. I guess it could happen up in the wild. I don't know. They cover some of the same habitat. This textbook at Kent State University says, look at the evidence for evolution, boys and girls. This fish produced 3 different varieties of fin shapes. The fins are shaped different. That proves evolution. Oh, yeah. This textbook right there on the shelf says broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower all came from a common ancestor. I agree. We covered that in the broccoli section. And boy, they jumped right on that and said broccoli is a man-made invention. No, broccoli is a plant.
Man select.
Heard about the atheist saying, God, we don't need you anymore. We can explain how the universe, how man got here. And God says, oh, really? Would you like to have a contest? The atheist said, sure. We'll have a contest. I'll make man. So the guy gets, atheist bends down, starts getting some dirt. God says, no, 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 get your own dirt. Think about that for 5 minutes. I think they're the same kind. All up and down California, you've been out there where they raise the black English walnut trees on top of black walnut stumps. When they're itty bitty, they cut them off and graft them on because the English walnut stump doesn't handle the damp soil out there. The black walnut handles the soil, but it doesn't taste very good. So people want English walnuts. They're easier to crack, better tasting. So they graft them on by the thousands, acres and acres and acres of them. It's still a walnut. It's the same kind of animal. Why don't you graft that walnut on the back of a turtle? Let's see, crossbreed that, okay? During World War II, they tried to get more sugar out of the sugar beets to feed the soldiers because they couldn't get enough sugar. And they selectively bred sugar beets. They went from 6% sugar to 17% sugar. Two things happened. They hit a brick wall. They couldn't go past 17%. Secondly, the crop, you had to babysit the thing now because it was susceptible to all kinds of diseases.
Inferior.
It got weaker. You got more sugar, but it got weaker. It could be the moose, the elk, the reindeer, and the caribou had a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue about that. They might have. I suspect they're the same kind. We've got a display out here in our science center showing the pecan nuts, cross between hickory and pecan. The dentist in Evergreen, Dr. Cartwright, made the display for us. He raises them. Here's one that's 50% pecan. He's got them that are 25% pecan. He crossbreeds the pecans and hickories. They're both a tree. They both are a nut. It's not evolution. It's a variety of the same kind. We got some, I got them right here. That's a big cross between a hickory and a mocker nut. That's a whopper.
You found Aaron Ross, great-great-grandparents.
Right. Now, after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders and with a certain orator, a guy going to give a fancy, flowery speech against Paul, named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. And he gave a sesquipedalian speech. Used all kinds of flowery words. Sesquipedalian uses big fancy words, and we talked about that yesterday. Talking or tending to talk much or freely. Talkative. Got to give lots of big fancy words. Meet the master loquacious sesquipedarian right here, Mr. Ra. So when this speech maker was called forward, he began to accuse Paul, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. He's buttering up the king. We accept it always in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness, notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee. I pray thee that thou wouldst hear us of thy clemency a few words. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, a mover of sedition among the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief priest Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thou mayest take knowledge of all these things, whereof we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. So he gave his flowery speech. Okay? Aaron, you gave your flowery speech of how you're convinced evolution is true. Paul stood up after the governor beckoned unto him to speak. He said, forasmuch as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself. Because that thou mayest understand, there were yet 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues, neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me. Mr. Nelson, you cannot prove anything about evolution that we've been discussing. You have some wild theories, and you eloquently present your theories with great and flowery words, but I think most people, if we slow it down and play it word by word or phrase by phrase, are realizing this is silly. Read the comment section. By the way, we had to take down 1 through 5 for a couple days for fear there might be a copyright infringement, but we're working on that. They're back up now, okay? It's one of the slides, nothing to do with it, no big deal. Okay. Okay. Now, Mr. Nelson said it's a fact that birds are a subset of dinosaurs. No, it is not a fact. You can believe that all you want. In the same way, humans are a subset of apes. Well, you know your friends better than me, okay? But no, we're not subsets of apes. Primates, eutherian mammals, invertebrate, deuterostrome animals. We talked about that last time. There is no faith required in any of this. We can prove it all. That's what you said. My second fact and evidence in support of evolution is taxonomy. We covered that last night. The first evidence of evolution, and is still the most compelling about the similarity of the different animals. Watch last night's broadcast if you don't believe me on that one. Now, his third line of evidence, I'm going to play, I know it's going to be difficult, 45 seconds straight without interruption of Mr. Nelson, starting at 22:22 here. Where is he? Right here. Let's see. Got to get it over there. What's going on here? Why isn't it working?
Yeah, there you go. It was just there.
Okay.
It's in the clouds.
Okay. Right there.
Birds are a subset of dinosaurs in the same way that humans are a subset of apes, primates, eutherian mammals, and deuterostome animals. There's no faith required in any of this. We can prove it all. Now, my third line of evidence supporting evolution is that we don't just have a mechanism that we know actually works, even under direct observation and manipulation if we want to. And we don't just have a phylogeny that we can verify with fossils, morphology, physiology, embryology, and genetics. We also have an actual theory, something creationism doesn't have and can't even comprehend. A body of knowledge with profound explanative power that has withstood more and harsher critical analysis than any other theory, and yet it still has never failed or been contradicted. If you're going to disprove or refute any scientific theory, much less the best supported theory in all of science, you're going to have to cough up your own theory to replace it. That's one of the rules of science. To qualify, your hypothesis will have to be effectively proven in the sense that it has to make testable predictions that are potentially falsifiable, and it has to account for all the data better than the current theory.
We'll stop there for now because we're getting it's going to get way too deep to shovel if we don't. Okay? First, people get a BS, we know what that is, then they get MS, that's more of the same, and then PhD is piled higher and deeper. Okay. So, let me take this line at a time, Mr. Nelson. My third line of evidence supporting evolution is that we don't just have a mechanism that we know actually works. That is absolute baloney. What is the mechanism that changes a hamster to an elephant over billions of years? Or changes an amoeba to a whale? What is that mechanism? I would like to see that.
Religion.
Where's the new information coming in the gene code? You do not have a mechanism that you know works. You imagine it, you dream about it. Hang on. Under direct observation and manipulation if we want to. No, you don't have that. Why would you say such a thing? Nobody observes how this happens. And we don't just have a phylogeny that we can verify with fossils, morphology, physiology, embryology, and genetics. We also have an actual theory. Whoa. Well, let's see. Let's take this line at a time, word at a time. Phylogeny, a proposal of how organisms are related by their evolutionary history. So they arrange them and draw lines on paper, and that becomes evidence. It is based on the evidence that all living things are related by common descent. So your phylogeny trees are based on the evidence that they're related by common descent. That's imagination. The evidence for phylogeny comes from, and it names a bunch more sciences. Well, let's talk about these. He said, we also don't just have a phylogeny, we can verify with fossils. Look, no fossil counts as evidence of anything other than it died. In a court of law with an honest judge and an intelligent jury, they would throw out every single fossil as evidence for evolution. Every one. He said morphology. What is that? Morphology is the shape of organs and features that you have, the study of forms. How many animals have 2 eyes? Nearly all of them. Okay? My third line of evidence comes from physiology. What is that? The branch of biology that deals with normal functions of living organisms and their parts, the way in which a living organism or bodily part functions. So you're telling me the way things function, like your stomach digests food and your lungs exchange gases, that is proof for evolution. Couldn't that be, proof of creation?
Yep.
Also comes from embryology. I cannot believe you are still using this. You just throw out the word hoping nobody will catch it. Slow down. Embryology, an embryo, the baby growing in the mother, the branch of biology and medicine concerned with the development of embryos in their development. On my video number 4 of my series, Creation Seminar Series, go to video number 4, Lies in the Textbooks. I cover quite a bit. I'm going to show just a small piece of it here about lies in the textbook, or you can buy it individually. $50 for the whole thing. That's a lie to say embryology supports evolution. Here's a textbook, Heath Biology, right over there. They say we have evidence of evolution from development. They're lying through their teeth here. The similarity between early stages in development helped convince Darwin that many forms of life shared common ancestors. Whoa, now that's simply crazy. Darwin considered this by far the strongest single class of facts in favor of his theory. So when Darwin thought this idea that all the embryos look alike is the strongest evidence for his theory, it's not true. And you know that. I'm surprised, Mr. Nelson, that you would say embryology is evidence for evolution. This was proven wrong in 1874. Maybe you got 2 years of college. I know you have your associate's degree. Maybe keep going, and you might learn about that, okay? Haeckel made up the idea, the phrase, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. What does that mean? Well, ontogeny, the growth of the baby inside the mother, goes through stages. Recapitulates, or reenacts, or plays out the whole story of phylogeny, the relationship of all the animals. So he's saying the baby goes through these stages and it replays all of evolution. Haeckel made up that phrase. This textbook, Irish textbook, says the presence of fish-like structures in embryos of different species shows that these animals have evolved from fish and share a basic pattern of fish development. See, you got this one, and this one all look identical. This one turns into a human, this one turns into a bird, this one turns into a fish. This is what kids are being taught worldwide. Check out the textbooks, embryology. It's as if the embryo retains a memory of its origins and starts to copy them during its development. In other words, it remembers when it used to be a fish. Just remember the word farm, F-A-R-M, fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal. That's supposedly the stages they go through. Okay. This is called baloney. The idea that sick mind Freud relied on most heavily in the manuscript is the maxim that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. That is, the development of the individual recapitulates the evolution of the entire species. See, sick mind was a strong believer in evolution. Man's just an animal. This textbook shows the embryo having gills like a fish, folds of skin. Those are not gills. This is lie number 11 in my video series, Lies in the Textbooks. Those little folds of skin develop into glands in the throat and mostly glands in the throat and bones in the ear. They never have anything to do with breathing, never. They're little folds of skin. They grow into different, nothing to do with breathing. I've seen fat folks that have 5 or 6 chins. They can't breathe through any of them but the top one. For heaven's sake, Hillary's got a bunch of them, okay? Haeckel reached an all-time low when he began presenting his biogenetic law, known as the law of recapitulation. Fancy word that means the baby growing in the mother reenacts the whole evolution story for us. It starts off as a fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal. Finally, when it's born, they say it's not a human until it's born. Dumb as a box of rocks, if you believe that. Haeckel taught that each animal retraces the stages of evolution in its embryonic development. While it's growing in the mother, it goes through the stages of evolution. Now there's a human embryo and a dog embryo at 4 weeks. At 4 weeks development, you can see vast differences. Haeckel made them look exactly alike. Now keep in mind, this was in 1869, when not many folks had microscopes, certainly not good microscopes. Didn't have access to one there. So he got by with it for a long time. Creation magazine back in '96 ran an article showing the actual photographs compared to his drawings. Here's the chart that Haeckel made, showing how that all these animals, the humans, the fish, the chicken, all of them, the pig, all look identical as embryos. He lied through his teeth. On top are his drawings. Underneath are actual photographs of what he claimed he's drawing a picture of. This is the real thing. That's the picture he came out with. He's either an incredibly lousy artist or he's lying. Well, we now know he was a fabulous artist and he was lying. His own university held a trial, University of Jena in Germany. He confessed. He said, a small percentage of my embryonic drawings are forgeries. Those, namely, for which the observed material is so incomplete or insufficient. Excuse me, you can't look at the baby embryo of a pig, cut one open, as to fill in and reconstruct the missing links by hypothesis and comparative synthesis. Big word saying, I lied and I'm not going to apologize, okay? He said I should feel utterly condemned were it not that hundreds of the best observers and biologists lie under the same charge. What did he say? I should be embarrassed, but everybody else lies, so I'm going to lie. Despite its status as a fake, Darwin continued to use the biogenetic law as the most important evidence of common descent. And Mr. Nelson, you should be embarrassed that you are still using embryology in 2018 when this was proven wrong in 1874. The human embryo itself at a very early period can hardly be distinguished from that of other members of the vertebrate kingdom. That's what Charlie Darwin said. He was completely misinformed. All these frauds were brought to the public in 1911 in a book called Haeckel's Frauds and Forgeries. Few people know the pictures were fakes. The deceit was exposed in Haeckel's Frauds and Forgeries. They quoted 19 leading authorities of the day. It clearly appears that Haeckel, in many cases, freely invented embryos or reproduced the illustrations given by others in a substantially changed form. They said it was a sin against truthfulness. Despite being exposed early on, Haeckel continued saying it was proof for evolution. He confessed it was wrong and they lied, but he continued to use it. Why? They don't have any other evidence. I was in a debate with an atheist one time and I went through about 20 lies in the textbooks, and he said, folks, Mr. Hovind is right, these things are lies, but I've got a question for you, Mr. Hovind. They never want to call me Dr. Hovind. He said, what are you going to replace all this with?
Well, that's exactly what Aaron said.
That's what Aaron said.
You have to replace it with something else for it to...
You can't take a lie. So if 2 plus 2 is 5 is in your math book, I can't take it out till I find a replacement. Okay, 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, I'll replace your embryos. God designed them. Replace it, okay? Michael Richardson at George's Medical School in London, he said he found there's no record that anyone actually checked Haeckel's claims. Nobody checked it. Makes me angry. What Haeckel did was to take a human embryo and copy it, pretending the salamander and the pig all look the same at every stage, at the same stage of development. They don't. They are fakes. When we see that at a certain stage, the embryos of man and ape, dog, rabbit, pig, and sheep, though recognizable as vertebrates, cannot be distinguished from each other. Haeckel said this in 1900, 25 years after he had been proven to be a liar. He's still teaching it. He doesn't have any evidence. Here's the drawings on top. There's the photographs on the bottom. This biogenetic law is as dead as a doornail. Back in 1988, Scientific American admitted that, or American scientists. They know it's not true. The biogenetic law as a proof for evolution is valueless, has no value. Biogenetic laws become so deeply rooted in biological thought, it cannot be weeded out in spite of having been demonstrated to be wrong. I can't believe Aaron Ra is still teaching embryology as evidence for evolution. It's the 21st century. Wake up, boy. Okay, get up to speed. 19th century drawings still appear in reference books, are badly misdrawn, says an embryologist in Britain. Haeckel confessed to drawing them from memory and was convicted of fraud, but the drawings persist. I went to the University of West Florida in Pensacola and got their biology book, and there were Haeckel's drawings. They're still using it. 2005, I went to University of North Dakota. Haeckel's drawings are still in there as evidence. Great book showing that it's not true. Darwin's book came out 1859. He predicted we're going to find evidence from my theory. Haeckel faked the drawings 10 years later because they didn't have any evidence. He was convicted of fraud by his own university in 1875, but they're still keeping it in the books. All these books are right here on the shelves. You're welcome to come look at them. We've got the page number right there. Still teaching the baby has gill slits. It is the shared features of the young embryos that suggest evolution from a distant common ancestor. Gill slits on the human. Glycobiology. Tim Barra still teaching it, a famous evolutionist. 115 years after it was proven wrong. This is Kenneth Miller, teaches at Rhode Island. We tried to get a debate with him, and Kenneth, anytime. 855 Big Dino, extension 3. I'll come up to your university and take on all your staff with half my brain tied behind my back. I can't believe you are still lying to your students, telling them embryology is evidence for evolution. You're either confused or you're deliberately lying. I don't know of another way to put it. You certainly shouldn't be giving that stuff into students. Gee whiz. This is a 1998 science book showing it. The presence of gills and tails. You can read these for yourself. Why would they, in the year 2000, not 1874, that's 126 years later.
They got nothing better.
You don't have, okay. Similarly, human and fish embryos resemble each other because humans and fish share a common ancestor. Tiny, they say it's the same. They are lying. They are not the same. Gill pouches, a false
Science.
this false science. The evolutionary history of evolutionisms is also seen to the development of embryos. We've got evidence for evolution in 2004 by the embryos. 2004, embryos still teach evolution. Really? Gill slits teach evolution. In 2004, they're lying. This is not true. They say we've got evidence from the gill slits, proven wrong in 1874, still offering it as evidence for evolution. The presence of evidence of gill slits and tails shows we have a common ancestor. They're lying through their teeth. Not true at all. Comparative embryology in 2005, still teaching it. Saying they have gill pouches. Those are not gill slits. Embryology, they have gill pouches and tails. Northern Michigan University still using them in 2006. Northern Michigan University, I could get more slides from more recent. They haven't changed a thing. They're still using this, okay? Kent State University said, oh yes, the tortoise and the chicken have looked the same as embryos. They're lying through their teeth. They don't have gill slits. Evidence for evolution. They have gill slits. 2017 textbook off the internet. McGraw-Hill. Embryos have gill slits. This is a baloney. 2017 textbook from embryologywithevolution.blogspot.com. Here's Benjamin Spock back in the 50s and 60s. Kids got spocked instead of spanked. He said each child as he develops is retracing the whole history of the humankind. Physically and spiritually, step by step. A baby starts off in the womb as a single tiny cell, just the way the first living thing appeared in the ocean. Weeks later, as he lives in the amniotic fluid of the womb, he has gills like a fish. Gills like a fish. 2005 dictionary, American Heritage, on the shelf over there. The gill slit. Bony fish and all other vertebrates, including humans, have rudimentary gill slits during their embryonic stage. Really? This one says, by 7 months, the fetus looks from the outside like a tiny normal baby, but it's not. It's not a baby at 7 months. That's a lie. Lie number 12 on my video number 4. The angel of the Lord said, behold, thou art with fetus and shalt bear a son. No, I believe the angel said you are with child. See, it's a child before it's born. They didn't call it a fetus, it was a child. Scott Peterson is accused of murdering his wife and unborn child. Why didn't they call it a fetus? Well, Scott Peterson is found guilty of murdering his wife and son. Why didn't they call it a fetus? Unborn child. In California, a double homicide qualifies for the death sentence. So when they wanted to kill this guy, they wanted to call it a child. Otherwise, they would, if the mother would have just gone for an abortion, they would have called it a fetus. Hypocrites, yeah. 34% of babies born at 5.5 months survive. That was in '98, probably greater now. Samuel Alexander was a 21-week-old baby, less than 5 months in development, still in the womb. They had to do surgery on the baby before it was born. Cut the mother open, cut the uterus open, the baby's holding the doctor's finger. There's a great book about the evolution myth. Do we sell that one, Anna, in our bookstore? Get a price on that. It's a fabulous book. So why did they keep this in the textbooks? It's very simple. That's the only way to scientifically justify abortion. They want you to say it's not a human yet. Because they want to reduce the population. Today it's 7.44 billion. They would like it to be 500 million. So, Mr. Nelson, I'm embarrassed for you that you're saying embryology is evidence for evolution. No, it is not. Get up to speed. My third line of evidence supporting evolution is that we don't just have a mechanism, we also have an actual theory. Jesus said, "You're of your father the devil, the lusts of your father ye will do." He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there's no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own. He's a liar and the father of it. Because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. So let me see if I got this straight. Your three best evidences for evolution in this series. The fact that evolution happens was number one. Biodiversity and natural complexity increase naturally. We covered that a couple days ago. That is not true. Number two, my second fact and evidence in support of evolution is taxonomy. Oh, the way we arrange the creatures. That is not true. We covered that. My third line of evidence supporting evolution is that we don't just have a mechanism, we also have an actual theory. We also have an actual theory, something creationism doesn't have and can't even comprehend. Excuse me, Mr. Nelson. I may have to look up some of the giant words you use because you're trying to impress people. I'm trying to teach things at a simple level, and most people appreciate that. But we do have a theory. It's been in printed form for many thousands of years and has never been proven wrong. You see, the Bible is actually the anvil that has worn out many hammers. Here is the Bible. Here is Mr. Nelson. You can keep beating on it all day long. You're going to be worn out and not it. And at Judgment Day, you're going to be really embarrassed. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. He claimed he did. God said everything's going to bring forth after his kind, after his kind, after his kind, after his kind, after his kind. There are no exceptions to that. After his kind, after his kind. 10 times in the first chapter, God said they'll bring forth after their kind. A body of knowledge with profound explanative power that has withstood more and harsher critical analysis than any other theory, and yet it still has never failed or been contradicted. You're claiming that evolution is a body of knowledge that's never been contradicted. Excuse me, Mr. Nelson, okay? We got to define what we're talking about. I do this carefully in my seminar part 4 and in seminar part 1 of my series, because this is important. What are we talking about when you say evolution? Is it cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter? Is it chemical evolution, the origin of all the chemicals? Because if the Big Bang theory is true, it produced hydrogen and helium and maybe lithium and deuterium. How do you get gold and silver and platinum out of hydrogen gas? I'd like to learn how to do that. Yeah. They say, well, fusion. No, come on. You can't fuse past iron to begin with. Google that. How do you get helium? How do you get all these elements out of hydrogen and helium? It's imagination. Thirdly, there would have to be stellar and planetary evolution. Nobody has ever seen a star or a planet form. The silent embarrassment of modern astrophysics is we do not know how a single one of these stars managed to form. That was back in '86. You got something better now? Has anybody seen a star form? The origin of stars is the most fundamental unsolved problem. They might see a spot getting brighter and claim a star is forming. You don't know a star is forming. Could be a dust cloud clearing in front of a star that's already there. Nobody's seen a star form. No one really understands how star formation proceeds. It's remarkable. They see them blow up once in a while. It's called a nova or a supernova if it's a big one. That's the opposite. One atheist I was debating, he said, we've calculated that if 30 stars explode near each other, it'll produce enough energy to form a new star. You got to lose 30 to gain 1. You ought to run for Congress. You could help them guys borrow their way out of debt. It's been estimated there's enough stars in the universe, every person can own 11 trillion of them. Those are the ones we know about. We don't know about the ones that we don't know about. There would have to be, if the universe is 13.7 billion years old like you guys say, there'd have to be 9.7 million new stars forming every minute for 13 billion years, and we've never seen one do it. I think you got a problem. Get a new theory. Then you have to have what's called organic evolution. Life has to get started somewhere, somehow, from non-living material. And the major brand name evolutionists that know their stuff will admit nobody knows how life got started. Then you have macroevolution, where an animal changes into a different kind of animal. Nobody's ever seen that. American Kennel Association has 339 recognized breeds of dogs. They might have had a common ancestor called a dog. And you may get a big dog and a little dog from a common ancestor, and it would be a dog. It stops. The further you get from the norm, the more problems you have. How long would the Chihuahuas last in the real world? Not one day in the wild. Be a miracle. Certainly not a week. You got to babysit the dumb thing. The hawks would carry it off around here, wouldn't they? Beans? I tell kids in my seminar, okay kid, here we got a dog, wolf, coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? The little boy, yeah. The banana, okay. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. Now Charlie's book on the shelf over there, The Origin of Species, this is where the problem got started. Microevolution is variations within the kinds. That one happens. The first 5 are purely religious. Nobody's ever seen those. Mr. Nelson, you've never seen them either. You have 0 scientific evidence for any of those first 5. None. Cover much more on that in video 4. You said, if you're going to refute or disprove any scientific theory, much less the best supported theory in all of science, what do you mean, which one of these in evolution? If you mean this is the best supported theory, I agree. If you mean any of these, I disagree. Show me where's the evidence, scientific evidence that's been supports any of these first 5. You're going to have to cough up your own theory and replace it. That's one of the rules of science. Okay, I got one. I got a theory. Sir Arthur Keith said evolution is unproved and unprovable. We believe it because the only alternative is special creation, and that's unthinkable. You're not allowed to think about creation. Pierre-Paul de Grasse said, no matter how numerous they may be, mutations do not produce any kind of evolution. They can't increase genetic complexity. They can scramble what's already there. That's all they can do. Dr. Lee Spetner taught information theory for a decade at Johns Hopkins University and the Weizmann Institute. He's written a new book called Not by Chance, Shattering the Modern Theory of Evolution. In the book, he said, in all the reading I've done in all the life sciences literature, I've never found a mutation that added information. All point mutations that have been studied reduce genetic information. They do not increase it. Here's a 5-legged bull. There's no new information added. He already had the info to make a leg. He built one in the wrong spot. That's scrambling existing information. He didn't get a wing or a feather or a beak. He got a leg, and he already had a leg. Natural selection may have a stabilizing effect, but it does not promote speciation. It's not a creative force. Natural selection can only act on properties that already exist. It cannot create properties. But Charlie Darwin, in the 6th edition of his book, which I think I've got 6th edition on the shelf, he said we have to abandon natural selection. He used to rely on that. He said, sorry, it doesn't work. Natural selection is incompetent to account for the incipient stages of useful structures. Mr. Nelson, why are you still teaching evolution? Why do you still believe that? They say the human appendix is vestigial. That's lie number 13 in my seminar series, video 4, lies in the textbooks. Your appendix is not vestigial. Such structures, which are considered to be an evidence of an organism's evolutionary past, are called vestigial structures. For example, the hind limbs of whales are vestigial. There are no vestigial structures. Even if there were, that's the opposite of evolution. That's losing, not gaining. Not going to help. Vestiges of Human Evolution, Anatomy and Physiology, 3rd edition. They have useless little piloerector muscle around every hair. When you get the goosebumps, that little muscle tightens and your hair stands up. That's proof of evolution. It's difficult to understand vestigial structures, such as these, as anything other than evolutionary relics. Oh no, it's real simple. God designed it. When you get cold, the little muscle tightens up, hair stands up, traps a layer of air, helps keep you warm. Not complicated. They say it's vestigial. That's a body part you don't need anymore. Oh, in 1925, evolutionary zoologist Horatio Hackett Newman said there are 180 vestigial structures, things you don't need in your body. They said you don't need your tailbone, you don't need your tonsils, you don't need your adenoids. When I was a kid, they took out my tonsils and adenoids. It was common. They thought, nobody, you don't need them, take them out. It was all the time.
Yeah, but their theory has changed.
The theory has changed. They found out, oh, you need them.
Yeah.
Here's Ask a Scientist, University of Chicago. Ask a Scientist. Nancy writes in, what is the function of the appendix in a human? The scientist writes back, the appendix has no known physiological function. It's believed the appendix will gradually disappear in human beings as our diet do not includes cellulose no more.
My goodness. Product of public school.
Our diet do not includes cellulose no more. I will refrain from picking on the poor grammar because maybe the person, English is not their first language. Certainly logic is not their first language either, first class. The human appendix has been proposed to be a vestigial structure. A structure that has lost all or most of its function, original function, or that has evolved to take on new function. The suggestion was that it was the shrunken remnant of the cecum, thought to have been present in remote ancestors of humans. This is from Wikipedia. Hold it. The appendix is shrinking. Vestigial structures. Examples, your appendix. Vestigial means you don't need it anymore. Once upon a time, it was used to store the inedible things people ate, like bark, fruit, peelings, even rocks. That's why a surgeon can remove it without causing any harm. They are lying to the students here. Long regarded as a vestigial organ with no apparent function, no function in the human body, the appendix is now thought to be one of the sites where immune responses are initiated. Scientific American. This is back in 01. This is like 17 years ago. They know the appendix is part of your immune system. The appendix is required to activate killer B cells in your immune system like your thymus activates killer T cells. Oh. Its removal increases a person's susceptibility to leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, cancer of the colon, and cancer of the ovaries. Don't take your appendix out. I mean, it beats dying of appendicitis if you have to, but you're going to shorten your life by about 8 years is the average by taking your appendix out. You need your appendix. The coccyx, the human tailbone, is the remnant of a lost tail. Wikipedia. All mammals have a tail at some point in their development. In humans, it is present for a period of 4 weeks during stages 14 to 22 of the human embryogenesis. Oh, really? This tail is most prominent in human embryos 31 to 35 days old. The mother probably doesn't even know she's pregnant yet. 31 to 35 days. The tailbone, located at the end of the spine, has lost its original function in assisting balance and mobility, though it still serves some secondary functions, such as being an attachment point for muscles, which explains why it has not degraded further. Wikipedia, you are insane. Certifiably insane. It's believed the appendix will gradually disappear in human beings as our diet do not includes cellulose no more. Says we can obviously live without it. Okay, Nancy, I think you wrote this article. No, Nancy wrote the question. Who's answered this thing? I don't remember the name. If you think the tailbone is vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed. Come down, bend over. I will even sharpen my Swiss Army knife for the occasion. You can live without both your legs, both your arms, both your eyes, both your ears. That doesn't prove you don't need them. The appendix is part of your immune system. This one says, many organisms retain traces of their evolutionary history. For example, the whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges. Vestigial. Whales have small bones at the end of the body walls that are vestigial bones of hips and hind limbs. This is what they're teaching the kids. National Center for Science miseducation. And I debated Jeannie Scott once, and Jeannie, anytime, take you on again. I'll fly to Berkeley and take you on. A drop of a hat, I'll drop the hat. Okay? They said, we are a non-profit tax-exempt membership working to defend the teaching of evolution against sectarian attack. When I went to Berkeley, that was their office. They got a fancier one now. Somebody donated money. They said, oh yeah, is this how whales evolved? From a cow to a whale. A whale can give 2,000 pounds of milk in one day. Utterly ridiculous. They say the reason why is because whales have a vestigial pelvis, right there. A vestigial pelvis and leg bone that serve no purpose. These structures are evidence of the whale's evolution from four-legged land-dwelling mammals. That biology book's right over there, I believe. Modern whales have hind limbs, which have been reduced to only a few tiny internal hind limb bones that have no function. You gotta be kidding. Who wrote this book? Just imagine whales walking around. It's true. They're talking about these bones right there. Just imagine the whale walking around. I can't imagine. I tried. I can't do it. There you go. Killer whale, Cambridge University. When I was over there, they got it hanging up in the ceiling. Killer whale. How about humpback whale, Milwaukee, Wisconsin? They're real proud of this. These bones, they'll have a sign saying this is evidence for evolution. Imagine the whale walking around. I can't imagine. National Pornographic even said, millions of years ago, dolphins had legs. Oh, really? Why? Because of those little hind leg bones. Now listen, you guys that did all the teaching this baloney, those little bones are not vertebral, not evidence for evolution. The whale's pelvis, located far from the vertebra, has no apparent function. Well, there's the bone they're talking about right there. It is part of the whale's reproductive system. Remember, whales have to mate in the dark, underwater, with no arms, and they can't talk and say, squirt over, honey. This has nothing whatsoever to do with walking on land. It has to do with making baby whales. Why would they teach the kids this is vestigial? Vestigial structures, such as a pelvic bone in the baleen whale, are evidence of evolution. No, they're not. They're evidence of design. God designed them. Vestigial structures. The skeleton of a whale reveals the presence of pelvic bones. Pelvic bones? Accessed off the web last few months ago. That's not a pelvic leg bone. It's not vestigial. The whale's pelvis is evidence of evolution from four-legged land-dwelling mammals. This is not true. Lie number 14 in my series about lies in the textbooks. There's the bone they're talking about right there. Has a blood supply, nerve supply. It's part of the reproductive system. This one, hippos, likely evolved from a group of Nazarenes 15 million years ago. And first whales evolved 50 million years ago. The ancestor of both of these groups was terrestrial, walked on land. The first whales, such as Pakicetus, were typical land animals. They had long skulls and large carnivorous teeth. Ah, okay, berserkly. Here they show them in line here. All the whales coming from a common ancestor as all these other critters. All you got to do is draw lines on paper and it's got to be true. The bones in red is what they actually found 5 meters above the rest of the skeleton, 15 feet away. In a court of law, you could not prove that came from the same animal at all. It's a fact the bones were found in the dirt. Yeah. The evolutionists have an interpretation of that, so do the creationists. They say they're evidence of one kind of animal changing to another. The Christians say, no, these bones you found are evidence it died. They're always trying to erase that line and make students think their interpretation is part of the evidence. See, it's easy to get confused. How many saw the movie The Green Mile, Tom Hanks? Great movie, okay? In the movie, here are the facts. 2 girls are missing. A massive manhunt is organized. Evidence. John Casey is found holding the 2 dead girls. John Coffey, yeah, John Coffey. Fact. John Coffey is arrested and executed for the crime in the movie, right? Fact, he was not guilty. This guy did it. You know, it's possible to look at the evidence and come to the wrong conclusion. And you atheists are so anxious to get God out of your life that you look at the evidence and everything you see becomes evidence for evolution. God said there'll be two of every sort shall come unto thee. God told Adam and Eve in Genesis 1, they're going to bring forth after their kind. God told Noah, it's going to be after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. I mean, see, a herd of elephants will only come from and produce a herd of elephants. At the individual level or at the group level, evolution doesn't work. A pride of lions only come from and reproduce a pride of lions. A pod of whales will only come from and reproduce another pod of whales. A gaggle of geese will only come from and produce a gaggle of geese. A murder of crows will only come from and reproduce a murder of crows. Swarm of locusts will only come from and only reproduce a swarm of locusts. A troop of apes will only come from and only reproduce a troop of apes. Maybe an occasional college professor out of that. No individuals evolve and no groups evolve either. Anyone who teaches otherwise is either lying or stupid. Now, Mr. Nelson said, my third line of evidence, third line, is that we don't just have a mechanism, we also have an actual theory. Get a new one. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. I got a theory too. In 6 days, the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. So Adam must have seen dinosaurs. Yeah, we covered that on video 3. Part 2, we talk about the firmament in the midst of the waters and why they live to be 900. There used to be a firmament above the waters, above the atmosphere. Get my video number 2 if you want more on that. The Bible says the earth is the Lord's. He established it upon the floods. Sorry, let's be a little long tonight. Almost done here. Psalm 24, Psalm 33. He lays up the depth in storehouses. Psalm 136. He stretched out the earth above the waters. You said Christians don't have a theory. I'm going to give you my theory, Mr. Nelson. When God first made the world, there was a layer of ice above the atmosphere, maybe 10, 15 miles up, I don't know. It's gone now. It fell down at the flood. There was a layer of air to breathe under greater pressure, explaining why we have ginormous insect fossils. Insects breathe through their skin. Watch my video number 2. Underneath the crust was lots of water trapped. That water came up, canopy came down, water came up. Most of the flood water came from inside, not from rain. So from the creation up until the flood, the Bible teaches during that time the people lived to be 900. Get my charts, I got one here somewhere. Anyway, they lived to be 900 years old before the flood. Now it's a fact of science that reptiles never stop growing. Like all reptiles, it grows throughout its life. So dinosaurs were big lizards with Adam and Eve. You said, we don't have a theory. I'm explaining carefully. God made everything in 6 days. They were living to be 900, and the reptiles grew to be huge. And we can explain all of it. Variations within species certainly happen, but they're limited. I wouldn't use Carolus Linnaeus's classification system. I would use the word kind, like the Bible says. Anything above that is speculation. But the Bible says in the last days there will be scoffers. Mr. Nelson, this is you. They're going to say, where's the promise of his coming? Since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Watch my video number 2 for much more on that. And the world was overflowed with water. They're ignorant of the flood, and they're ignorant of the coming judgment. 2 Peter 3:7. So their scoffers are ignorant of the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment of God. They don't want to talk about that. Mr. Nelson, you're ignorant of the creation. God did it in 6 days. That's the only way it works with all the millions of symbiotic relationships. Animals and plants exchange gases with each other. Just Google symbiosis. It can't happen slowly. Bible dates put the creation 6,000 years ago, which means dinosaurs lived with man. So, Jesus came down to redeem his creation. We went away in sin. He let them kill him. 3 days later, he rose from the dead. Soldiers were amazed. Where is he? We find fossils all the time indicating there's death. This fish probably never thought that was his last moment till this guy got a hold of him, and neither one of them thought, oh no, we're about done here. And the flood came and buried him half his dinner down his throat. You don't know when you're going to die either, Mr. Nelson. I understand you live in Dallas, Texas area. Have you seen the way they drive in Dallas, Texas? You may want to think about that really hard. It's appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. Now, shortly before Mount St. Helens erupted, Tim Barron's, good friend of mine, used to work at KJSL Radio in St. Louis, witnessed to Harry Truman, who lived on Mount St. Helens. He told me Harry was a very profane man, cursed and swore, but he listened carefully to what I had to say and rejected it. Harry stayed on the mountain when it blew. His body was never found. Never found him. Bible says, he that hath the Son hath life. He that hath not the Son of God hath not life. God is not willing that any should perish. What's going to happen soon is just like happened in the days of Noah. When the Son of Man comes back, it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah. In the days before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, making YouTube videos about how God doesn't exist. I added that part. Until the day Noah entered into the ark, and knew not till the flood came, and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be, coming again. We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Mr. Nelson, you don't realize this at all, and you'll never admit this, but I'm the best friend you've got. Because I'm telling you, you are insane to believe in evolution. I'm trying to help you. Now, you have a much bigger vocabulary on this topic than I do. I confess, I probably have a bigger vocabulary than you on other topics. But you've worked really hard to hide your crazy idea in your verbose vocabulary. Jesus said, I come quickly. So if you die today, where would you go? You're going to be dead for a really long time. Really long. All you get in life is a little bitty dash between two dates. Now, someday there's going to be a rock that says Aaron Nelson. Born 1962, died, could be this year, couldn't it? I hope it's not. I don't wish that on anybody. But you and I both know it could be. Now, I asked you to provide your 3 best evidences for evolution. I think I've adequately answered. You go another minute or so on this tape talking about non-essential stuff. If you'd like, I can answer that. But I want to go back to my regular study we've been doing, so I'm going to call it quits right here. Unless, if you give a response to this series, don't forget, you make your claim, which you did. I respond, which I just did. I'm done. You get to respond if you'd like. I would suggest you not. I suggest you zip it and go get a job flipping hamburgers. Do something else, okay? But if you respond, remember the rules, I get to respond again. So how about we just call it quits? And why don't you say, Hovind, you're right. I was wrong. God, would you please forgive me? That'd be great. Call me, 855-BIG-DINO, extension 3. I'll be glad to talk to you, Aaron. And I would love to win you to Christ. I think that's what you need. I'm not your enemy. I'm the best friend you've ever had, and you don't even know it. All right, push thumbs up, like us, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff you're supposed to do. I don't know. Share it, and yeah, subscribe, and tell others about it. Come down, visit Dinosaur Adventureland. See you tomorrow. Bye.